Good evening, everybody. I'm hoping a few of you can join me tonight. I know I didn't do a sort of normal Facebook Live last week. I thought I'd do something a bit different last week with the tapping. I don't know if you found that interesting and useful. I don't know if you've tried it out at all. But tonight I thought I'd just come back to basics, really. Just really conscious at the moment that everybody's lives have been turned upside down, and it's really, really difficult, isn't it, to stay focused on thinking about just maybe what you were doing before, just healthy eating. Everything's just been turned upside down. We don't know what we can buy in the shops. I do think we're actually getting to a point now where things are beginning to return to normal. Let's hope so anyway. I know when we go to the supermarket, it does appear that you can get most things. But whilst your minds may not necessarily have been on trying to be as healthy as you possibly can, I thought tonight I would just go right back to basics, actually, and just give you some simple ideas and some tips and maybe some simple recipes that you can just start to think again about being healthy. So say hi. I think somebody's watching. So if you start joining, perhaps you could just leave a little comment and say hi so I know who's watching tonight. And I hope you're all feeling okay at the current time. And so there's just a few things for you tonight. I hope you're going to find this useful. So, of course, it's really important just to try and get our lives a little bit back to normality. And it may be that you don't have the sort of normal ingredients that you would normally have in your fridges at the moment, and that's absolutely fine. So I thought as a starter, a good way to start this would be to just go and have a look, really. What's in your store cupboard? What's there? What have you got available? And you might find you've got, thinking about the healthy things that you might have in there. So do you have brown rice in there? Do you have anything like quinoa? Just the basic sort of staples of grains that would be healthy things to be cooking with. What about pulses and lentils? You might have some dried versions of those. You might have some tinned chickpeas or tinned kidney beans that are lurking in your cupboard somewhere. Tinned tomatoes. And even things like tinned fish. Pilchards. I know I usually have some tinned pilchards lurking in my cupboard somewhere. Or maybe some tinned sardines. So these are all sort of things you can start thinking about what you might be able to do with these. Don't forget just the basic herbs, dried herbs and spices. They're always fantastic to be cooking with. They don't have to be fresh. And I just love herbs and spices because you can start throwing them in, being adventurous, start throwing them into dishes and just making things up and just bringing them alive with dried herbs and spices. And they've got so many beneficial properties to them. Don't overlook those at all. And what about nuts and seeds? Have you got those in your cupboard still at the moment? Because they're great. I'll go on to talk about it. They're great to be adding to dishes. So don't forget to think about using those. Hi, Sabrina. Things like oat cakes. Have you got oat cakes lurking in your cupboard? I've got some Rude Health crackers that are made of lentils and chickpeas. So they're a great alternative. So you might have something like that there. And eggs. Some people have had difficulty buying eggs, but I think, again, things are getting back to normal. So eggs are a great thing that you might just have around. And I actually think they last a lot longer than they say on their shelf, in their sort of shelf life. So that's what might be lurking in your cupboard. But what about in your freezer? Have you got any pre-cooked dishes that you've made before that you could have a rummage around and find something that you might have frozen where you've made excess and you've got that in your freezer? You might have frozen vegetables. I've got bags of frozen berries and I've been able to buy more frozen berries. So they're great things to have. And what about any portions of things like chicken and fish that you might have in there? So start thinking about how you can use your imagination of just putting simple meals together. But we can still be healthy by eating all these things, all those things I've just mentioned. And when you are using your imagination and starting to put your meals together, just the basics when you can of keeping a meal as balanced as you possibly can. Start to think about the plate, having about a third of it being some protein, a maximum of about 25%, maybe only 20% being the starchy grains or the starchy root vegetables on your plate. And the remaining 45% should be vegetables. So that's what you're aiming for, but it's not a science. It's just looking at what you've got and thinking about how you can turn what you've got into some healthy meals and just starting to get back on track again. So breakfast, you know, you might have some porridge in there. So certainly I make porridge with water, I add cinnamon, I throw in some frozen berries at this time of year, and then I add any nuts and seeds to the top. And that just creates a lovely balanced breakfast. And I start my breakfast that way, not always, but you know, that's just a good healthy breakfast to start the day. And if you've got eggs, you can do eggs any which way you like. They can be poached, they could be fried, they could be scrambled, you could make an omelette. So eggs are just a fantastic food to have any time of day. So don't overlook those for breakfast. And, you know, maybe now's the time you've actually got time to cook a proper breakfast. Whereas a lot of the time we're rushing out the door, we're rushing off to work or taking children to school. We've actually got the time now to start thinking about these things. And maybe add some vegetables to that. So that would be one thing you could do. Now lunchtime, this would be an ideal time to just look at any vegetables you've got. You might have some left over, and you can put anything together to make up a soup. So just use something like bouillon powder as a basic stock, or any other vegetable stock powder. Throw in any vegetables you've got, and then you can blend it and you've got a perfect soup to have. I would recommend thinking about adding some lentils or some pulses, because that way you create a balanced meal. So you add the pulses or lentils because of the protein content, and that just helps to give some balance to the meal. So rather than just being purely vegetables, which in itself is healthy, but we do need to bear in mind keeping our blood sugar levels stable. So think about adding something like lentils or pulses to your soup if you've made it. And in the evening, you know, again, any vegetables you've got, easy just to stir fry those. What have you got that as a protein source that you could add to it? It could be some frozen prawns that you've got, or if you've got any chicken, you could add that to it. Think about adding some cashews or sesame seeds. Any other protein that you can think of. It's just such a simple thing to do. If you've got some soy sauce or tamari, you can throw that in. If you've got some dried chili, then add some chili to it. Fresh if you've got it, but if you've got dried chili flakes, then add some chili flakes to it for some extra oomph. And maybe serve it with some brown rice. Perfect, you know, just such an easy way to create a healthy meal. Roasted vegetables, any vegetables you've got, you can just easily roast those. Add some different dried herbs when you pop them in the oven, just to give some different flavours to that. Maybe cook a one pot casserole. Again, any herbs, any vegetables you've got and different herbs and spices. Again, I'd use a bouillon powder. And maybe if you've got some chicken, you could add some chicken or any other type of protein to that. There's just some really simple ideas, but just a few, I've got some recipes here. I've actually just completed some new recipes for a local nursery, some menus for them, and I sent over some recipes. So they had to be really simple recipes that the nursery could implement, and in a very easy way to cook meals for the children of all different ages. And I thought I'd just mention some of these that I sent over because they are just so simple. So vegetable and chickpea pasta, tin of chickpeas, some garlic, onion and peppers, courgette. Use passata here, but it could be tins of tomatoes. Just a really easy way of throwing things together, vegetables and adding the chickpeas and serving it with some pasta. Now, ideally it would be a whole grain brown pasta. You can also buy other pastas now. Maybe you can get them, maybe you can't, but other pastas available which are based on chickpeas and lentils and not actually based on wheat would be an alternative. It's just a really, really simple thing to put together. Or how about a lentil chili? I usually have lentils in my cupboard. I like pew lentils, or might have red lentils. So you cook the lentils, you might just fry an onion, maybe with some garlic, add the chili powder, maybe some oregano or other, and thyme or some other mixed herbs that you might have. Add in, here I said passata for the children, but tomatoes, tin of kidney beans, you might add frozen peas or other frozen vegetables. And then add the lentils, and you could serve that with some rice, and you've got a really simple vegetable chili that is mostly based on store cupboard ingredients. Okay, you might need to add an onion to it, but store cupboard staples that hopefully you might have. Really simple to do. Now, if you did have some frozen fish fillets, you could make a mild fish curry. Again, just with gently frying an onion with some garlic, adding curry paste that you might have. You might have curry paste, or you might have some curry powder that you could add to this. Stirring in tomatoes and peas. And then later on adding some fish pieces to it. Maybe adding some chickpeas or other pulses as well. And letting it simmer. And in a really, really simple way, without too much effort, you've actually got a very mild fish curry recipe there. Again, you could just add that, serve that with any rice that you might have. So they're just some very quick and simple ideas. I've got a rice pudding recipe here. Children love rice pudding. I would ideally make this with some brown rice. So you'd only need about 4 people, you might, or 2 to 4 people, depending on ages, about 100 grams of brown rice with 500 mils of some milk. You might want to try and buy some nut milk if you can get it, or may use a dairy milk, with 350 mils of water. You might add some raisins to it. You might want to actually add something like cinnamon or nutmeg to it, which would be lovely. And you actually place all those ingredients in a pan and let it simmer. You need to stir it quite often, but let it simmer for about an hour. You might want to add a tiny bit of maple syrup, but if you add something like cinnamon and nutmeg, you shouldn't need to add any sweetener to it. And at the end of it, you should have a lovely rice pudding. Rice pudding is actually an alternative breakfast that you could serve, or you could serve it as a pudding. You might actually, I mean, I did this for children, but obviously if you're at home, you could then think about adding some chopped nuts to this. It would be delicious adding chopped nuts, or maybe throwing on some berries on top of that as well, which is a really nice thing to do. So they're just a few really, really simple ideas. I'm trying to incentivize you, to give you a nudge in the right direction, to just start thinking. We can start eating healthily. You know, I think we're settling down into a bit more of a routine now. Things are returning a bit more to normal in terms of what we can start doing and what we can start shopping for. But these are just really, really simple ideas that you can implement without having too many complicated ingredients, without putting anything difficult in place. Very, very simple. And in the coming days and weeks, I'm going to start posting some more recipes. I am posting my 10 tips for immunity again, because I think a lot of people might have missed my Facebook Live. So I'm putting that back out there again over the next 10 days on my social media channels. But I'm going to start putting some more recipes out there for you. And we do have the time now, don't we? So we've got time to be thinking about our health, thinking about taking some more self-care and being healthy with our eating. So hope that's been useful for you, given you that nudge that you might need. I know a lot of you don't need that, but just in case you did, because I know, you know, a week or so ago, it was so difficult to even think about, you know, just getting back on track, really. So that's what this has been about. So take care. I'll be back next week, and I'll keep posting things out there for you, which I hope you find useful and interesting. So have a good week. Enjoy this sunshine. That's one blessing we've got at the moment. It's dry, it's not raining, and we're getting lots of sunshine. So enjoy being out in the fresh air as much as you can, and enjoy your healthy cooking. And if you've got recipes, share them with me, because I'd love to hear about them. Take care, everyone. Bye.